let me first of all say that, Ellen, who just introduced me, was the first volunteer to walk into our Manchester office. Look what she has gotten started here in Manchester. It's unbelievable. Give Ellen a big round of applause. We're so grateful to her. I want to thank Mary Westphal for providing the invocation, to Bill Whitmore, who led the pledge and is a Vietnam veteran. We are grateful for his service. We are thankful to White Katner, the field organizer here in Manchester. We've got some wonderful elected officials here, starting with the first couple of New Hampshire, Governor John Lynch and Dr. Susan Lynch. Give them a big round of applause. We are thrilled to have one of the best new congresswomen that we've got, Carol Shea Porter. Give her a big round of applause. To the chairman of the New Hampshire Democratic Party, Raymond Buckley, and to a couple of great state senators who are here, Senator Lou D'Alessandro and Betsy DeVries. Give them a big round of applause. To all the other local state senators and state representatives, county and local officials, thank you, and most of all, thanks to all of you. There are a lot of people here who put in a lot of time in this campaign, and I am grateful. We are enjoying a beautiful day here in New Hampshire. But I think it's appropriate for us to begin by thinking about those families that are having their lives upended as a consequence of Hurricane Ike in the Gulf. I've been on the phone with the head of FEMA and the mayor of Houston and others who are trying to grapple with this tremendous storm. We don't yet know what the damage is going to be. We know that 100,000 homes have probably been lost. We know that 4 million people are without power. Search and rescue teams are just now getting into Galveston, where we know that a large proportion of the population did not evacuate. And so this could be a very difficult and trying time for the people who live in the Gulf. So I think it's important for us to make sure that we are keeping them in our thoughts and prayers today. And I know that one of the things that we've seen after Gustav, one of the things that we saw after Katrina and Rita, is that during difficult times, during moments of tragedy, the American people come together. We may argue, we may differ, but we are all Americans, and one of the principles of this great country is that during times of need, we are all in it together, and it doesn't matter whether we are Democrat or Republican, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American. We are there for each other at moments of need. So I hope that this enormous crowd is going to be monitoring the situation. I suspect that the Red Cross, already burdened with Gustav and helping out in the wake of that storm, is going to need more resources. We may end up needing volunteers and supplies, and I know that all of you will be there. If that should become necessary. You will help them. I have confidence. Now, even as we think about this enormous hurricane that's moving its way through the Gulf, I think one of the things I've learned over the last 19 months is that a lot of people are going through their own trials and their own tribulations. There are a lot of quiet storms that are taking place throughout America. All across America, I meet people who have seen their jobs shipped overseas. And they haven't lost only their job, they've lost their health care, they've lost their pension, and they've lost the sense of dignity that comes with work. All across America, I've met couples who don't have health care even though they've worked all their lives. Maybe they lost their job at the age of 55. Maybe a company reneged on its commitment to provide them health care after they retired. All across America, I meet young people who have the grades and the will and the drive to go to college, but don't have the money. All across America, there are children growing up without a stable home, in schools that are underfunded and uninspired, young children who don't see any path for themselves other than a path to jail or a path to drugs or in some case a path to death. All across America, there are families who have always understood themselves as middle class, who knew that if they played by the rules, if they tried, they could make it here in America because that was America's promise. That it didn't matter where you were born or what you looked like, that if you were willing to put in the effort, that you could achieve your dreams, that you could buy a home and be able to care for your family, that you wouldn't be bankrupt if you got sick, that you would be able to retire with dignity and with respect, that you could send your child to a good school and watch them march off a stage with a diploma in hand someday. And yet they feel that American dream, that American promise slipping away. All across America, people are working harder for less. And all across America, it's harder to save and harder to retire. And people are concerned not just for their own immediate well-being, but they're concerned what's happened to that promise? What's happened to that dream? Are we going to be the first generation in a very long time that passes on an America that's a little less prosperous, a little less unified, a little poorer, and a little meaner than the one we inherited from our parents? That's the question on people's minds in this election. That's the reason that we gather here today. We are here to say enough is enough, that we are going to bring about change that makes a difference in the lives of ordinary people, and that's why I'm running for President of the United States of America. Think about it. Think about it. Think about what we've gone through over the last 8 years. We've seen incomes and wages flatline. When Bill Clinton was president, the average family income went up $7,500. Since George Bush has been in office, your average family income has gone down $2,000. We have seen the highest unemployment rate for at least 5 years, and we expect that with what's happening on Wall Street, things may get worse. We have the highest foreclosure rate since the Great Depression. We have seen the federal government having to intervene now to bail out major institutions on Wall Street because somebody was asleep at the switch. And so even if you haven't lost your home, you've seen your home values plummet. The truth is that we have seen an economy deteriorate year after year after year. And in the White House, we have seen a president cling to a worn-out theory of economics that says if you give more to the most, that it'll somehow trickle down to the least. How many of you have felt things trickling down? The truth of the matter is that for the last 8 years, those economic theories have failed. And so you would think that the other party would understand that what has happened has not worked. But you've got John McCain, my opponent in this election, who has been standing up since his convention suggesting that somehow he and his running mate are going to be the original Mavericks and are going to shake things up in Washington. Now think about this. I want you to think about this for a moment. John McCain says that we've made great economic progress since George Bush was in office. John McCain has said that the fundamentals of the economy are sound. He just said this several weeks ago. He had an economic advisor who, in a moment of, I guess, honesty, because this is what the guy thinks, said that we're not really in a recession, we're just suffering a mental recession, it's all in your head, and suggested that we've become a nation of whiners. I don't know who he's meeting, but let me tell you something. The American people don't whine. The American people have seen tough times, and they don't complain. They go to work every single day. They do what they're supposed to be doing to look after their children. Even when they get a tough break, they get back up on their feet. But what they do expect is a government that's fighting for them, that's looking out for them. And that's what they're missing right now. And that's why we're here. That's the change that we need. I don't think John McCain's a bad man, and we greatly honor the service that he provided to this country while in uniform. But what I do believe is John McCain doesn't get it. He doesn't know what's going on in your lives. He is out of touch with the American people. Why else would you say the economy's made great progress? How else could you say that the definition of rich is when you make $5 million, so that if somebody making $4 million must be struggling? How else could you have an education advisor who admitted in the New York Times that, John McCain hasn't paid much attention to education policy? Or a health care advisor who said that we don't really have uninsured because everybody can go to the emergency room. They don't get it. They don't understand what's happening in your day-to-day lives. They must not have met the woman that I met, about 55 years old, who had worked all her life, had sent her child through school, but now had no savings, no retirement, no health care, and turned to me and said, I never thought that I'd find myself in this situation. They must not have met the young woman that I met in Iowa who is going to school full-time, but she's got a sister who's got cerebral palsy, so she's got to wake up after 3 hours sleep every single night to work the night shift at Federal Express. 3 hours of sleep a night, and still is finding herself in debt because of rising medical expenses for her sister. They must not have met the guy I met in Indiana who had seen his job shipped overseas and had to pack the equipment that he had worked on for 20 years and choked up as he was explaining what it was like to go home and explain to his family that he had lost his job. That's the reality all across America. That's what John McCain does not get, and that's why we have to win this election. Now let me explain to you, Manchester. Let me tell you why I get it. Let me tell you why I get it. Because when I see that that veteran from Iraq or Afghanistan coming home without a job, maybe with post-traumatic stress disorder, I think about my grandfather coming back from World War II after Patton's army, after fighting in Patton's army, and him being rewarded by a government that valued his service with a GI Bill that paid his way through college, and they gave him the chance to get a loan to buy a house for himself and his wife and his new child. When I think about that young woman who's working the night shift and going to school at the same time, I think about my mother, a single mom, raising 2 children, going to work at the same time, sometimes having to go on food stamps to make sure we had enough to eat, but still being able to send her children to the best schools in the country. Because that's what a generous nation does. When I meet a couple that doesn't have health care, I think about my mother when she was dying of cancer on a hospital bed, having to argue with the insurance companies because they were saying maybe there's a pre-existing condition and we don't have to pay your medical bills. So I know what it's like to see a loved one suffer, not just because they're sick, but because of a broken health care system. When I see guys who've been laid off of their jobs and are trying to figure out how to make ends meet, I think about all the people that I worked with, a group of churches on the south side of Chicago, after I joined them to deal with the steel plants that had closed, and we set up job training programs for the unemployed and after-school programs for youth and tried to rebuild the community, black, white, and Hispanics coming together. I know what it's like to struggle. I've seen what the American people go through, and I know that when ordinary people come together, we can do extraordinary things, but we need leadership from Washington, and that's what I intend to provide. But understand this, Manchester, if we are going to bring about the change that we need, then we have to understand what change is. We can't be fooled. Because John McCain, listen, I've been talking about change since this campaign started. Some of you were involved. I talked about change when we were up. I talked about change when we were down. But now suddenly John McCain and his running mate, Sarah Palin, they're out there saying, we're for change. We're for change too. Well, I'm glad that they now agree with me that we've got to change America. But let's be absolutely clear about what change means. Change isn't just a word. Let's describe specifically what change is. When John McCain says he wants to continue the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and wants to provide hundreds of billions of dollars of new tax breaks to some of the wealthiest corporations in America, including ExxonMobil and oil companies getting $4 billion worth of tax breaks, that's not change. When his tax plan leaves 100 million Americans with no relief, not a dime's worth of tax relief, that's not change. That's the same old Bush economics. Let me tell you what change is. What I've said is 95% of working families in America, 95% of working families here in New Hampshire, they will get a tax cut under an Obama presidency. A tax cut. We're going to put more money in your pocket so you can deal with rising costs of home heating oil and rising costs of gasoline and rising costs of food, and maybe save a little bit so you can watch your child someday graduate from college and you will have saved the money for it and you'll be able to retire with some dignity and some respect. And we'll say to senior citizens, you don't have to pay taxes on your Social Security if you make less than $50,000 because you need a break too. That's what changes New Hampshire. So don't believe these ads that go around saying Obama's going to raise taxes, because the truth is I provide 3 times the amount of middle-class tax relief than John McCain does. Don't take my word for it. Some Republican analysts have said the same thing. So those ads are dishonest, they are untruthful, and they're not the kind of change that we need. Let me explain on health care what change is not. John McCain has basically the same health care plan that George Bush does. What he says is, we are going to start taxing the health benefits that you get from your employer. We're going to eliminate the tax deduction, which means employers are going to be less likely to provide you health care. Now, what McCain says is he's going to give you a $5,000 credit. Here's the only problem. Health care may cost $12,000 or $14,000. And if you have a pre-existing condition, or if you're an older American, if you're not healthy or wealthy, then good luck trying to get health insurance from your insurer if you're on your own. That's not the change we need. That's more of the same. So what I said is this: we are going to make sure that we work with your employer to provide you health care and lower your premiums. And if you don't have health care, you can get the same health care that a member of Congress gets for themselves. And we are not going to wait 20 years from now to do it or 10 years from now to do it. We're going to do it by the end of my first term as president. That's the change that you need, New Hampshire. On education, John McCain doesn't have any ideas for education. His own people admit it. The only thing he does is he trots out the old thing about we're going to give vouchers to everybody. He has no commitment to public schools in America. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to invest in early childhood education to close the achievement gap. We are going to pay teachers higher salaries and give them more support. We're going to hold our schools more accountable, but we're going to change No Child Left Behind because we're tired of seeing the money left behind for No Child Left Behind. And we are going to say to the young people in America, if you put some time into community service, working in an underserved hospital, working in a veterans home, working in an underserved school, joining the Peace Corps, joining our military, we are going to make sure that you can afford to go to college. We will help pay your way. That's what change is. Change is having an honest debate about energy and actually getting something done. John McCain and I actually agreed on something. He said a while back, he said, the reason we haven't had any serious energy policy, the reason we actually import more oil now than we did 30 years ago from foreign countries is because we've had politicians who are just doing the bidding of special interests in Washington and not getting serious about the problem. I agree. Here's the only thing he left out. He's been there 26 of those 30 years. And he hasn't done anything serious about it. He said no to alternative energy, no to biofuels. We're going to say yes to a new energy policy in this country. We are going to set a goal. The same way John F. Kennedy said we're going to the moon in 10 years, we are going to end our dependence on Middle Eastern oil in 10 years' time. We can do it. And we're going to invest in the new cars of the future, and hybrids and electric cars built not in Japan or South Korea, but right here in the United States of America. We're going to invest billions in research and development around solar and wind and biodiesel and hydrofuels. We are going to build a new electricity grid in this country. We are going to rebuild our energy infrastructure to make sure that our homes are more efficient and our cars are more efficient. And we are going to send a message to the oil companies, yes, we need to increase production here in the United States. And we can look at offshore drilling as an aspect of our challenge, but understand we only have 3 to 4% of the world's oil reserves. And we use 25% of the world's oil. So when you see at the Republican convention them shouting, drill, baby, drill, that's not the slogan for a 21st century America. We want to create a new energy policy that actually leads us into the 21st century. and create 5 million jobs that can't be exported and pay good wages right here in New Hampshire and right here in the United States. We need to rebuild our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, but also our broadband lines. Also high-speed rail. And if people tell you that we can't do it, you just remind them we're spending $10 billion a month in Iraq while Iraq has a surplus of $79 billion. We are going to end this war in Iraq responsibly, bring our troops home, and start rebuilding America. John McCain wants to have a debate about national security. Let's have that debate. I warned that going into Iraq would distract us from Afghanistan. John McCain cheerleaded for it. John McCain was wrong, and I was right. I've said we need to make sure that we are increasing our strength in Afghanistan, and we should be going after bin Laden. Don't talk about chasing him to the gates of hell. We know where he is in the hills between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We should have stayed focused there in the first place. John McCain was wrong, and I was right. We don't need more tough talk. We need smart strategy. And we need to recognize that the world is looking for leadership from America. And if we join with them, if we rebuild our alliances, if we send them a message that we are going to live up to our values and our ideals, then once again we will be that shining light on the hill. We will be a beacon for all those who hunger for freedom, all those who yearn for prosperity. That's the kind of American leadership that we are looking for, and I want to provide it as President of the United States of America. So let's just remember what change is. Now, John McCain, his basic message to you is this: watch out, George Bush. With the exception of economic policy, tax policy, healthcare policy, education policy, foreign policy, and Karl Rove-style politics, we're really going to shake things up in Washington. He said the other day, I'm going to tell the lobbyists that they can't run Washington anymore. Who's he going to tell? His campaign chairman? Who was one of the top corporate lobbyists in Washington? Who's he going to tell? His campaign manager, who was one of the top corporate lobbyists in Washington? What does that mean, that he's going to tell them they're not running Washington, they're running his campaign? Who's going to run his White House? That's not shaking things up. That's why I said at the beginning of this campaign I would not take PAC money. I would not take money from federal registered lobbyists. That's why I passed the toughest ethics reform legislation since Watergate when I got to the Senate, working on a bipartisan basis. That's what changes. Lobbyists have not funded my campaign. They will not run my White House, and they will not drown out the voices of the American people when I'm President of the United States of America. So let's understand what's going on in this election, because we only have 8 weeks to go, less than 8 weeks to go. The McCain-Palin ticket, they don't want to debate the Obama-Biden ticket on issues because they are running on 8 more years of what we've just seen. And they know it. They don't have new ideas to help you send your kids to college. They don't have new ideas to help you get health care. They don't have new ideas to help you increase wages. So as a consequence, what they're going to spend the next 7, 8 weeks doing is trying to distract you. They're going to talk about pigs, and they're going to talk about lipstick, and they're going to talk about Paris Hilton, and they're going to talk about Britney Spears. They will try to distort my record, and they will try to undermine your trust in what the Democrats intend to do. I mean, that's what they do every election. Look, they did it 4 years ago, they did it 8 years ago, they've done it 20 years ago. But let me be clear, and I don't care whether you are a Democrat or an independent or a Republican. I want you to be perfectly clear about this. The times are too serious for those strategies to work this time. This moment is too urgent. If we don't bring about the changes that we need, starting right now, then our children may not have the same kind of America that we want them to have. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that millions more people don't have health insurance. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that the ocean tides have risen a little more and that the weather patterns have changed a little more. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that China and India have outcompeted us again because we weren't serious about fixing our education system. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that we've been distracted by wars we don't need to fight instead of focusing on the wars that we do have to win. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out we still got veterans sleeping on the streets instead of providing them the care that we need. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that more people are jobless and more people have lost their homes and more people don't have health care. I don't want that future for America. I don't want that future for my children. I don't want that future for yours. And so I believe that we will not be distracted this time. We will not be diverted this time. John McCain may have the lobbyists, but I've got you. That's what the pundits have never understood about this election. This election's not about John McCain, it's not about Barack Obama, it's not about Joe Biden or Sarah Palin. It is not about us, it is about you. It's about your hopes. It's about your dreams. It's about you getting up every day and going to work and hoping that you will be rewarded for your efforts. It's about you building a better lives for yourselves. That's what this election is all about. That's the choice that you have to make. And I am absolutely convinced that if you will stand up and insist on the kind of politics you deserve, if you stand up in this election and say enough, we are going to move in a new direction. If you are willing to stand up and make phone calls and volunteer and get involved and listen to the debates and talk to your friends and talk to your neighbors, if you are willing to shed the cynicism that is fed to us every single day and roll up your sleeves and commit with me to rebuilding this nation, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, state by state, then I guarantee you this, we will not just win New Hampshire, we are going to win this general election. And you and I together, we are going to change this country and we're going to change the world. God bless you, Manchester. God bless you, New Hampshire. Let's go win an election.